Medical college admission test questions. Here we go. Pause this video to read and answer this problem. Okay, now that you're done, electrochemistry questions are actually very simple. The only thing is you have to remember a specific framework. So let's start with the difference between a galvanic or voltaic cell and an electrolytic cell. And this information is really helpful even when it comes to the different lab techniques found on the Mcat, like gel electrophoresis. A galvanic cell does not have an external power source, but an electrolytic cell does. That's why a galvanic cell is spontaneous while an electrolytic cell is not. The way I like to think about it is like a rechargeable battery. While the battery is being used, it's in a galvanic state, so it's spontaneous. But when the battery is being recharged, it's in an electrolytic state. It has an external power source, so it's non-spontaneous. Something else to note is a galvanic cell has a positive standard cell potential, also known as EMF or cell voltage, while an electrolytic cell has a negative standard cell potential. But what is a standard cell potential? The equation is the following. The cell potential equals the reduction potential of the cathode minus the reduction potential of the anode. It is really important to understand what the reduction potential is and what it means to have a higher or lower value. Something else to remember is that in a galvanic cell, the cathode is the positive electrode while the anode is the negative electrode. In an electrolytic cell, the cathode is the negative electrode while the anode is the positive electrode. Something else to know is the anode is always the site of oxidation, while the cathode is always the site of reduction. I like to remember that through the mnemonic Mcat. Lastly, let's talk about the direction that electrons flow. Electrons flow from the anode to the cathode. Current is the opposite way. Okay, so to answer number 1, you're going to use the equation that we just talked about. We will subtract negative 0.76 minus 0.34 and vice versa, 0.34 minus negative 0.76. As we talked about, the positive cell potential will be the galvanic cell, while the negative cell potential will be the electrolytic cell. Using this information, you can find out which half reaction corresponds to the cathode and the anode in the galvanic cell versus the electrolytic cell, and by association, which species gets reduced and which one gets oxidized. So, in a galvanic cell, the copper gets reduced since it is the cathode, and in the electrolytic cell, the zinc is the cathode, so it gets reduced. We just answered number 2, so let's move on to number 3. As we talked about, electrons always flow from anode to cathode, regardless of if it's an electrolytic cell or a galvanic cell. So in a galvanic cell, electrons flow from zinc to copper, vice versa for an electrolytic cell.